In this video, we will try to understand how to create baseline data expectation around my training data. Okay. And if you see the end-to-end process of my model drift monitoring process, the creating baseline data expectation is one of the critical steps, because my drift check process will take my baseline data expectation as an input and compare it against my production data, right? And if it finds any mismatch, it will raise an alert. Okay. So first we'll try to understand how we can create baseline data expectation, and then probably we'll understand different aspects of my drift check process around how we can raise an alert and how we can perform a validations against unseen data, right? So those are the certain aspects probably we'll explore in this video and my subsequent videos, which will provide the practical exposure around the data expectation and around the drift check process. And expectation is nothing but it's a way of providing the expected behavior of my data, right? And in order to achieve that requirement, I will be using great expectation package, which has lots of features around creating data expectation and performing validations, raising alert, all those sort of things. And if you look the definition of expectation from the great expectation package library perspective, so expectation is nothing but it provides a flexible declarative language for describing expected behavior. Because once we'll know the expected behavior of my data, we can use those expectation to compare it against my production data or unseen data. Okay. Now we will start creating initial set of data expectation with the help of Great Expectation Python package. So first we'll create one fresh Python virtual environment, and then in that environment we will create initial set of data expectations. So I am creating env underscore monitoring Python virtual environment, and once it would be created, then I will activate that environment and will install Great Expectation package within it. So here I am activating it. It has been activated, and now I will install Great Expectation package. Expectations. Okay, press enter. So until it's happening, I will just show you what data I will be using for this demo. So you can see that I will be using Uber ride data, which I have downloaded from Kaggle website. And then you can see that I have divided this data into three different parts. The first part is trained, against which we will be building initial set of data expectation. And then I have evaluation and serve data, which I will be using for validating my data expectations. Okay. So now, once it would be installed, we'll start exploring Great Expectation library. What are the different options it provides for creating data expectation, and what are the different data sources it supports. Okay, because in order to create any data expectation, you need to connect it to the data source. And your data source could be anything. Either it could be your file stored within your local system, or it could be within your SQL database, or it could be your Spark based data frame, right? So whatever data sources you have, Great Expectation supports all those sources for creating initial set of data expectation. Okay, so now it has been installed, and now we'll explore this library. So Great Expectations, and you can simply press enter. It will show you all the options available within the Great Expectation library. And here you can see that it provides different options for performing different set of operations. So I'll be discussing about the data sources, so which we have just talked about. What are the different data sources it supports? The docs, which is about the data documentation. Whatever data you'll provide it as input, it will create a data documentation around those data, and which is a very efficient and effective way of creating data dictionary against your data. Okay, init will simply create initial set of libraries which are required for great expectation package. Okay, so we'll see the structure of the my great expectation package and what are the different artifacts it stores within different directory, and then it has different options for store and suite. So suite is very important because it stored a set of expectations. And if we look this carefully, I mean, these are the very powerful way of creating your data expectation, and these are very effective or efficient way of integrating all those steps within your drift check process. Okay, so here in next step we'll simply initialize my great expectation package, great expectation project, with the help of great expectations init. So init will initialize my project, great expectations. Okay, and now it will provide a structure how it will structure my directory. So within the great expectation directory, it will have YAML file, great expectation.yaml, which stores all the configurations required for my great expectation in order to connect to different data sources, or what sort of validations operator you would like to integrate with your great expectation, right? So it stored all those configurations, and we'll see what it contains. Then it has one folder called expectations, so which will store all the expectations around my data, and this will provide one JSON file, and using that JSON file we can simply integrate it with my automated pipeline, which will simply read that JSON file, perform my validations against my production data. Okay, then it has others, but for now we'll not discuss about those directory. The other important thing is notebooks. So within notebooks it will provide some boiler code required for manipulating my expectation suite, right? So whenever we'll create initial set of data expectation, this Jupyter notebook will provide an option to amend or modify those expectations based on our business requirement or based on our domain knowledge. So it's a very effective way of handling my expectation suite with the help of notebooks. And it's asking, do you want to proceed? Yes, I would like to proceed. And then it's asking us to confirm, would you like to configure data sources? Yes. So here I'm explaining these steps just to understand what are the different options great expectation needs to start generating initial set of expectation. So for initial couple of project, you can use this manual option using great expectations.init. And once you're comfortable with all these steps, you can directly create great expectation.yaml file directly within your great expectation package library. You don't need to go through this step manually one by one. Okay, and then it's asking what data you would like to great expectation to connect to. It's files based on pandas or Spark or relational database. So here I'd be using data frame based on pandas, so I'd be pressing 1, and then it's asking for, okay, pandas, right? So here it's for the file system, and then here it's asking about the what type of compute environment. So pandas is in memory, and PySpark will have its own compute engine. Okay, and now it's asking the enter the path of the root directory where the data files are stored. So I'll be providing the data root directory which is within the data folder, and now it's asking for what data directory you would like to give. I'd be giving Uber data dir. Press enter, and then it has configured some options for connecting it to my data directory, this data source. Okay, so it's internal for great expectation to understand how it will read the data from my data sources. Okay, and what sort of operations it needs to perform. So we don't need to worry about right now. Would you like to proceed? Yes. Would you like to profile new expectation for single data set within your data source? Yes, I would like to profile. My profile means understanding my initial set of expectation. Would you like to choose? So I'll press 1, and then it's asking which data you would like to select for initial data profiling for creating new set of expectation. For that purpose, I'd be using 4 train data. Okay, press 1. Enter the name of your new expectation suite. The new expectation suite means expectation suite will contain different expectations, right? So expectation suite will have n number of expectations around my data. So that's why we are calling it as expectation suite. So for now, I will leave the name as default. So I will not provide any name, but you can specify it. And then it's asking for, would you like you to proceed? Yes, I would like to proceed. And it's generating initial set of expectations. And here you need to remember one thing. Right now, it's not reading entire data set. It's just profiling based on thousand rows of data, just to provide initial set of expectations. And then probably you can modify it based on your understanding and based on the entire data set, right? But for now, it's just providing initial expectation, but based on sample of data. Would you like to build a data docs? Yes. Okay. And now it's asking for to proceed. Yes, I would like to proceed. So it will create initial set of data documentation. Okay, so I'll press Y. It's building data doc, and it's now asking, would you like to build new expectation for the data? Yes, it will open my data documentation in the browser. I will press it Y, and now it will launch the data documentation in my browser. Once it will open, it will provide you the necessary steps to configure and start working with the Great Expectation library. So you can explore it. It has 7 steps and which are very useful. But for now, I'm just closing it. And here it's a data expectation around some of the columns because it's just for demo purpose, and for initial data profiling, it does not select all the columns, right? And I will show you how we can select all the columns for generating data expectation around my entire data set for all the columns. And here you can see that it has generated 13 set of expectations. Okay, and which includes my table level expectations and the column level expectations. So table level expectation, you can see it has exactly 20 columns, right? And it will have these columns in the order. So depending upon your requirement, you can use this expectation just to make sure that the data coming from my live traffic is in this order and it contains the exactly 20 columns, right? So these looks good. And then if we'll explore the column level expectation, it has details around the distance. So you can see that it provides different set of expectation like values must never be null. Okay, and similarly for the other columns like temperature value must never be null. That's one expectation, and it also provides range of values. So minimum value must be greater than this and less than 20.62. So which is range expectation, right? So what ranges we are expecting as a part of minimum temperature. And similarly for it has some expectation around the maximum, mean, median, quantiles. Okay, so it has, so which is very good. So that's what we are expecting as a part of expectation, and we can use this set of expectation to compare it against the production data. And if you see that these are the very powerful way of understanding the behavior of your data, and it provides a set of rules around those data, right? So this is for the visual representation, but at the back end, it has also generated a file which we can use for my automated process. So you can see that within the expectations folder, within Uber Ride Train, which we had defined, it has warning as JSON file. And if you'll open it, you can see that it has all the expectation in the form of JSON layout, and it contains everything. Whatever we have seen as a part of data documentation, it has entry of all those details within this file. Okay, and we can simply use these set of expectation and we can integrate it with my automated pipeline. Okay, so these are the very powerful way of creating set of expectation automatically, right? And it will provide all the boilerplate code required for building initial set of expectation, all those configurations, parameters, everything. It would be supplied by great expectation. So that's the one thing. The other thing which is very important is to understand what are the different options provided. So initially, if you remember that great expectation or YAML file, it stored all the configuration details. So if you will open this file, you can see it has entry for data sources, right? So you can see that it contains details about from where to pick data, how we need to read data, that pandas data frame. Okay, so this would be stored within the data source configuration. Now it has different configuration for validation operator. So you can see the action list operator. So it contains different set of actions which we need to handle based on whatever actions we would like to take for my validation operator to perform. So either to store it within the database or your cloud storage or send a Slack notification. So it has different options. We can configure it based on our requirement. It has certain options for storing. So how you would like to store your database, right? So right now it's configured for local file system, but we can configure it for the S3 or whatever cloud storage great expectation support. So we can store all those results within the cloud storage system or within your configuration management system. We can integrate it very well. So it's okay. And then it has options for data documentation, and also we can store all those data documentation within your cloud storage system, right? So here you can see the storage store backend, so where you'd like to store all those data documentation. So in this way we can keep all the necessary artifacts or expectation data documentation at a common place, and that common place could be anything, wherever you would like to store those artifacts, right? And you can also manage all those configurations and files with the help of configuration management system. So you can see that it provides all the necessary artifacts required for drift check process. It has everything, and we just need to use all those parameters and configuration effectively based on our requirements.